be a bit of a different video. It's going to be a bit more casual, a bit more chatty, a bit more like what you would get on my Twitch streams, where I'm going to sit and just chit chat. If you don't know, one of my favorite hobbies is reading books. Absolutely love to read books in my spare time. As such, I find myself wanting to talk about books a lot. And it turns out a lot of you guys also like books. So we're gonna combine these things, you know? I'm gonna talk about the first books that I've read this winter season of 2025. And I'm just gonna let you know if I would recommend them, how I rate them, what I thought about them. There will be light spoilers. I'm trying to keep it as spoiler-free as possible for those who want to read these books. I know that's important for me. Like, I avoid spoilers like the plague. It's also why I don't watch film trailers. I just like to go in blind, baby. So let's talk about what I've read this winter and what I think about them. First up, we have them behind me. Gideon the Ninth. Oh boy, my thoughts on this book run deep. I know this book can be a bit divisive. This is one of my favorite books of all time, if not my favorite book of all time. I adore this series. I adore Tamsyn Muir's writing. Yeah, I can't praise this book enough. So this was the first book I read this year. I've actually read it before. I've read all of the books available in the series so far. It's Gideon the Ninth, Harrow the Ninth, and right now Nona the Ninth. We're waiting for the fourth and final book of the series, Electo, to come out. Yeah, because the Electocopium it's real, gang. If you know what I'm talking about, you know. But this book was actually a reread. I do a book club with my husband and a group of friends of ours, and it was my turn to pick out the book. And I decided to reread this book with the group for a couple reasons. I wanted my husband to read it. I wanted him to know what was going on. I wanted my friends to read it. And then for me and a very good friend of mine, it was actually a reread for us. And I've heard time and again how this book is almost better on a reread in some ways. And I gotta say, it does stand that test. It was a completely different experience on a reread, which was fascinating. I don't know, I feel like there's a kind of magic you capture going into a book, not knowing anything, and experiencing a story for a first time. And it's really hard to capture that kind of magic a second time on a reread. A lot of times when you reread something or rewatch a movie or whatever, you're capturing the nostalgia, you know, or maybe like you know what to expect, but nothing quite catches that surprise that you get the first time around, or like just the raw emotions you feel the first time. Gideon is almost written in a way where it's engineered for the reread to be a separate experience. I would stand by that. I think Tamsyn Muir planned for these books, all of the books in the series, to be reread and for it to provide the reader with as satisfying an experience. Having said all this, specifically with me picking this for a book club, I know this book is not for everybody. I feel like people either love it or hate it. And although everyone on my book club, luckily, liked it, they did have a couple spots where they felt like the prose was a little too flowery, a little too purple for their taste, which I get. I think sometimes they were wanting the book to get to the point a bit faster, which I do not mind in the slightest. I don't mind when books have a bit more of a purple prose, so keep that in mind. I also recognize that when I read or watch TV shows, I'm the person that sits there and makes the conspiracy theory board map, you know? I'm like charting out every little piece of dialogue and who looked at who through the corner of their eye and what props were in the background that could be used later. Like I'm that person. I accept that. And this book is written that way. Every single little thing in that book is there for a reason. Even if you don't find out in this first book, you will find something in here is related to something that happens in the second book or the third book. I absolutely adore that. I love putting on a conspiracy tinfoil hat when I read books. If that's not your thing, I think you can still enjoy this book, absolutely. But I also understand some spots with the prose might feel like a bit of a slog. It just depends on your taste. My favorite parts about the book are that it's mysterious, it's intriguing. At the same time, our main character, Gideon Nav, is a big dumb jock. Maybe not dumb, but like is a jock. And it's just kind of like,
I just want to live my life, man.
And to be surrounded by a bunch of genius, necromancers, exploring a dope magic system. It's just such a fun time. It has a huge cast of characters. If you do read this book, I recommend utilizing the dramatis personae in the front. It will help a lot. I just find every character memorable, whether I like them or not. It's such a unique cast. Everyone is given attention and thought. And it's just really great. You don't see it a lot. On the front of this book, it does also say, you might know this tag. It's lesbian necromancers explore a haunted Gothic palace in space. I love it, and it's accurate. I've also heard this book described as Among Us meets the Bible, which I will say is also apt. But while this book is a fun romp, if you want to continue with the series, they get crazy and go so much further beyond just like a haunted palace in one location kind of thing. Yeah, highly recommend. It was 5 stars my first read. It's 5 stars again. I fucking love this book. On to the next one. We have another book that was a absolute blast to read. Tainted Cup. This one's by Robert Jackson Bennett. This one was really fun. Another great read. This was my first, I guess, actual read of the year and not a reread. It was new to me. I didn't know that the entirety of the internet described this as a Sherlock and Watson mystery, but I would say maybe like a quarter of the way through the book, I was like, this feels really familiar. This is like a Sherlock Holmes kind of deal. And it is. I didn't even need the internet to tell me, but I came to the exact same conclusion. In my mind, it is Sherlock Holmes meets Attack on Titan. And indeed, the internet agrees. The thing that sticks out to me in this book is that it has absolutely stellar world building. It's got like biomedical tech, but the tech feels like magic. But in the book, it's kind of described as technology. They have like graphs and suffusions. They basically utilize plants, right, and natural resources around them and literally apply graphs and suffusions to people, to buildings, to anything you can think of to enhance them, essentially. Sometimes at a drawback, sometimes with not so great things happening to the people. But it's very interesting. It plays on a lot of themes of corruption and politics as well. And while that's not thrown super in your face because you're dealing with a murder mystery at its front, lots of political intrigue if you're interested in that kind of thing. This book is actually continuing, and the second book is being published like in a few weeks or something like that. And I think that is continuing more with the political corruption going on at a larger scale. So I will definitely be reading that. If you're also interested in just like cozy, not even cozy, but just like cute character dynamics, they're funny, they're entertaining. There's a true duo in this book that is like a Sherlock and Watson. Their names are Din, the main protagonist, and Anna, who is like the Sherlock Holmes of it all, the genius detective that can solve any problem thrown at her. And they're just adorable. Din just puts up with Anna's crazy antics, and Anna is as eccentric as one can get. It's really cool to see them combine their separate abilities and team up to solve a case. And by the end, they really become a team. I don't want to say too much. No spoilers. Love the book. We'll definitely be reading the second one. I gave this one 4.5 stars. The next one's rough. Next is Serpent in the Wings of Night. I'm sorry if you like this book. If you did, you maybe want to skip ahead now because I'm about to shit on this pretty bad. I want to be blunt and honest and have a discussion about books here. I hated this book. I really did not like it. I don't have too many positive things to say about it, which sucks. I was so excited to read this book. It was a buddy read with a really good friend of mine, the one that we've also read Gideon together, and it's both our jam. I also love vampires. If you know me, vampires are like one of my favorite things. Astarion from Baldur's Gate is my boy. Love it. I read like Dracula or Interview with a Vampire every Halloween season, like love it. So when we were like, oh, let's do the buddy read of a new like vampire romantasy, let's do it. We've been planning this for a while, but our schedules haven't lined up. Finally got around to like, okay, we're gonna do it in February. It'll be great. And it's just not there quality wise. The only thing I really enjoyed about it was there are some interactions between our main female character who is the protagonist, Oriah, I believe is how you say it, Oriah. Sorry if I get that wrong. Yeah, we have our main female protagonist, Oriah, and Rain, who is our male lead, also the vampire. And there were a couple interactions between them that were genuinely like cute and I enjoyed. But even that wasn't really consistent. There were a lot that felt forced or inorganic to me. And I just didn't really enjoy it as much. A brief synopsis of what goes on in the book is our protagonist, Oriah, is entering a competition, very like Hunger Games like sort of competition, where she will be put through trials, and if she wins, she will be granted a wish from their dark goddess. The dark goddess that created the vampires. There's a whole pantheon and stuff in this series. The thing is, I could not relate to Oriah whatsoever. She's just brooding and edgy. Isn't there like some kind of joke for that? It's like, I'm the brooding, edgy girl that stabs. And like, that's it. That's her personality. And I say that as someone who normally loves like dark, edgy, dramatic stuff here. Her personality doesn't go much beyond that. She has no agency. So if you like reading about a character with agency, I don't really recommend this book. Everything happens to her or happens around her, and she's just kind of going through the motions. But for the most part, this plot and this story is not moved forward by her decisions alone. She just happens to be going through the motions of the events. I would say at most she's able to show off through like physicality. And I mean actually like her physical ability to like, oh, I'm in the trial and I'm fighting and I stabbed somebody and I did it. And the odd thing is those scenes fall the flattest. Like I found the trial scenes in the book the hardest to read or like the easiest to skim over because they were short and they were not that entertaining. I don't think they were very well executed. And that was like her only moment to shine. It was like all the personal character things were just like non-existent. I know that's mean, but like, oh God, come on. To wrap up how I feel about the character, the friend that I buddy read this with said it best. Oriah is an unseasoned chicken breast of a character. And she nailed it. There's other things that were just kind of blah to me. Sometimes I read a book with bad characters, or maybe the writing and like the technical writing and prose isn't executed quite the way I like, but the world building's good. This world building, the world building in this book felt like an afterthought, and I didn't really appreciate the flavor of vampires. The way magic works here, the way their pantheon of gods is set up, even just the way like, I don't know, if you play D&D, you know the Aasimar where they can like have their wings appear and disappear? That's how like vampires are. It made them feel more like Celestials and Aasimar than they did actual vampires. I just thought it was an odd choice. That wasn't my thing. I understand aesthetically, like that can change from person to person. It's just all of it piled up to a big nothing for me. I think this all comes down to the fact that I don't think this author is very good with the show don't tell rule. I think that's one of the things that could have made Oriah feel a little more alive and believable or relatable. I understand they wanted a character that went through so much pain and is kind of dealing with like abusive relationships and such, right? I get that. But everything is just told to me. We're told how hard life is and how dark it is and how I have no one around me. But like, this book literally could have been half as long because of just how much we're told that again and again. And it's not good writing. Also, I want a sidebar about something. Hey, this is going to be spoilers. So if you do want to read this book or you're in the middle of it, click away and come back real fast. What was with the end with the dad, Vincent, the vampire dad of Oriah, who you find out is like a half vampire probably. Whoa. What was with that? That whole ending was super weird. I think what they were going for was a Jinx Silco type of ending, right? Where daughter breaks and maybe throughout the book was kind of like, oh, my dad might actually be manipulating me, or maybe this isn't the healthiest relationship with my surrogate dad, right? Same exact thing that Jinx went through. But the execution in Arcane is so much better. That's what this book should have been, and it wasn't. I barely felt anything when Vincent died. I felt like it was supposed to be this dam breaking moment for Araya, and it wasn't. I also have issues with this book fridging one of Araya's friends in the very beginning of the book, Alana. She's just brought up and literally killed off immediately so that Araya can constantly have this person to think about of like, oh my god, life is so hard. It's just bad writing. It's bad writing. That's my sidebar. I could talk about this for a while, but I'm gonna stop. I gave Serpent in the Wings of Night 1.5 stars. It would have been 1 star. The couple of interactions between Rain and Araya gave it a half. I'll be donating this. The next book was a palate cleanser for me. It was Elder Race by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This was a treat. It's a really short novella. If you like sci-fi or fantasy, I recommend this because this is a pretty damn good blending of ideas. It's definitely a sci-fi book, but oh my god, the way the genres are blended is fascinating. This was my first time reading Adrian Tchaikovsky, which I've heard such phenomenal things about his writing before. I plan to read Children of Time sometime this year too. But this was my first dive, and I thought the novella, after reading a couple of chunkier books, would be a nice change of pace, and oh my god, was it. Got it done in like a day or two. This book has a really clever use of dual perspective, which I normally don't like. I prefer when books stay in one perspective the whole time. If they switch, that's not gonna be a deal breaker or anything for me. But this was a book where I genuinely enjoyed the use of dual perspective, and I think it was used to such an advantage. This is how perspective changes should be done. So if you're like me and a bit worried about like, oh god, dude, like, are we doing this again? Don't let this scare you. I really adored the characters in this book. Their names are Muir and Liness. And then there's a couple other side characters, but you're really just alternating between those two and their perspectives. I would even say this book is almost like a character study of sorts. Don't get me wrong, there's a plot that, the story moves forward. Really, this is a deep dive into these two characters, and we're seeing their inner machinations and what's going on in their minds, and kind of what makes them tick, what's making them pursue their goals, what is pushing them forward to do what they do, which is something I think we all can relate to as human beings, right? Sometimes we are tired and they're like, what's the point of doing anything? Or maybe sometimes we're really motivated to prove someone wrong or to prove to ourselves that we can do something. I think this book dives into that, which is why I say like it's very character study in essence. Elder Race does also deal with themes of loss and anxiety and depression, which, as someone who has dealt with those sorts of things before, as many people probably watching, I don't know, it was a breath of fresh air. It was great. It was relatable. I enjoyed the ride. I gave this one 5 stars. I had a lot of high books today, but this earned it. I will be reading more Adrian Tchaikovsky in the future. Because also the prose was just fun. That was a good time, man. Loved the prose. The next book I read was one voted on by our Twitch community, which is something I'm so excited we got to do. We do a book selection bracket. I'm starting to do a book club with the community, which I will be doing here on YouTube as well as on Twitch. Basically anyone who's like a part of my channels, we're all going to do a big book club where we can all talk about books more and read one together, maybe see how we all experience it. So I started experimenting with this earlier this winter, where over on my Twitch stream, which if you're interested, I'm going to put my Twitch link below. We do lots of fun stuff there. I hope you enjoy it. Over on my Twitch stream, we did a bracket tournament of sorts where I gave certain genres, keywords, and buzzwords, and we did a tournament bracket where we voted for which book we wanted to read. And the winner for this last winter was Slewfoot by Brom, I believe it is. This was a horror pick, and the buzzwords were like colonial America, witchcraft, I forget some of the others, but people were really like, oh yeah, let's do like a Salem witch trial type of witchcraft thing. And this is what we got. Slewfoot, A Tale of Bewitchery. And indeed, it did deliver on the classic colonial era Puritan old school witchcraft, right? If you're wanting any of that flavor, this is it. Run, don't walk towards Slewfoot. There were some parts where this was hard to read. Our main character, Abatha, is a woman who kind of recently came over across the pond from London, married to an American, English, a colonist, a Puritan, married into the family. And it's kind of her and her husband trying to make ends meet. And they're trying to like own a farm and like get their own land, not be in poverty, not be in debt. I say it's a hard read because, oh my God, Abatha goes through it, man, and a lot. When you think,
Oh my God, our girl can't catch a break?
you're right, she can't. And things just keep getting worse. And when you think they're going to get better, you have this sinking feeling they're going to get worse. And they do. And they do get worse. Oh my God, it's getting so dark outside. Maybe we move the camera a bit. Some of the atrocities that Abatha goes through hurt to read. They hurt my heart a little bit. So fair warning, that does exist. But at its core, old Slewfoot is a story of revenge. So if you want girl power, I'm gonna come back and get you, this is it. I normally hate revenge stories. Maybe not hate. Hate's a strong word. I normally greatly dislike revenge stories because I am normally the kind of person where it's like, you don't need to put energy into revenge or hatred. Like, you know, there is a time to be angry and protect yourself, right? But also don't ruin your life over seeking revenge. This book's different. This book is the first time I was like, girl, I want you to go out and get it. I want you to do whatever you need to do to go and get your vengeance. I was in full support at the end, full on revenge arc. Go for it. Happy it happened the way it did. I especially feel that way because this book has some of the worst antagonists I've seen. I hate with a passion what I would call the main antagonist. Does anybody here know Red Dead Redemption 2? If you know Micah Bell from Red Dead Redemption 2, remember how awful that guy was? I hated his guts. Not the actor. I know he went through some stuff after. I know it's just a character. I know it's just a role. But Micah Bell, the character, I hate his guts. Awful human being. The guy in here, very Micah Bell-like. From the beginning, his introduction, I could feel it. Which means the author did a fantastic job. This book was emotional in general. This is one of 2 books that has ever made me shed a tear, and I didn't expect that at all. I'm not really much of a crier when it comes to reading books, so this was really a pleasant surprise. I kind of like when I get the emotional gut punch in a book. My one gripe with this book is that, this isn't even really a gripe, it's just maybe one of the weaknesses of the book is that there is a kind of secondary protagonist that I will call Tamsyn. Tamsyn is a spirit of sorts, so you kind of have 2 plots going on at the same time, one with Abatha and her hardships that she's experiencing, and then Tamsyn, who I will call like a forest spirit of sorts. I found myself less invested in Tamsyn's hardships and any kind of journey he was going through. Not that I wasn't, it was interesting, but I think I've come to the conclusion that because Tamsyn is a forest spirit, maybe it's just because like, hey, I'm just a regular human girl who maybe can't relate to the intangible problems of ancient spirits. You know what I mean? There were times I felt for his struggles more than others, but I definitely found myself way more invested in Abby and what she was going through. Having said that, I did love Tamsyn as a character. 3.75 stars. Almost 4. It's the little bit of disconnect that didn't give it 4 stars, but I still do recommend this book. This was a blast. Especially if you want really good like October country, autumn vibes, you want to read about witches around Halloween, this is a great Halloween book. And it's got really great art in it. Brom does his own paintings and kind of like character illustrations that are in the middle of the book and you can look at. It's awesome. Great art. Oh my God, it's gotten so dark. You know, maybe that's fitting for the mood, you know? We're finishing off winter. Winter's going out with a vengeance, just like Slewfoot. This next book we have is a super short one, and this is one I do recommend everyone read. I think everyone would enjoy this. It's fun, it's quick, it's fast-paced. It's A Short Stay in Hell by Stephen L. Peck. It is so short. Look how baby short this is. But oh my God, does it get you thinking. The concept of this book, I will be thinking about for the rest of my life. And I'm not even kidding. It's like 102 pages. It's extremely fast-paced. I'm shocked at how much they could fit in such a short amount of space, but it's haunting. It's about a man who dies. Again, I'll be kind of vague with this. It's about a man who dies and is sent to hell and finds out it's not exactly what he was expecting, and not exactly in the worst way either. Turns out maybe it's a little better than he expected. And then you find out in other ways, maybe it's a little worse than you expected. This is technically a horror read, but I will say it's got some strong like science fiction elements in it. As in, if you're somebody who typically enjoys science fiction, I think you will love this. If you're also a numbers person, you find like big numbers, crazy, scary math. If you find that kind of stuff interesting, I won't say how, you should read this. I read this book in a single day because it's just that witty and engaging. I found myself laughing out loud a little bit, like just chuckling to myself because there were just some really clever moments in it. I immediately told my husband to read it, and Alex read it in a couple hours while I took a nap, and he also loves this book now. So I felt like I did good finding this guy. It's like a giant thought experiment about the human experience, right? Something I feel like I can talk about that's not spoilery is that our main character's name is Soren. That's only mentioned like once or twice in the very beginning of the book, and it's not mentioned at all after. What's cool about that is it kind of makes him lose his sense of identity, but not. He very clearly remembers who he is and what he's trying to do, his core values, but also being in hell wears away at you. I think the author not mentioning his name again kind of represents that deterioration where like your sense of identity and self is different here on Earth as you experience in your mortal coil versus how you would experience it in hell. Essentially immortal, sort of. You know what I'm saying? I'm not articulating it very well, but to try to avoid giving away too much, but I can't recommend this enough. I gave this one 5 stars. Listen, if you go to my story graph, you will see I do not give that many books 5 stars. This winter was full of great reading and really, really bad reading. But this, you should go out and read. Go out and read it. I don't even know if you can hear it. I kind of hope not, but it is raining so hard right now. It's pouring. You can hear it on the roof. Maybe that's a vibe. Go grab some tea, enjoy yourselves. So the final book I have for today is one, I'm only halfway through it, unfortunately, but I still got like a week left in March. I'm good, I'll finish it by then. The last book we have is Ruination by Anthony Reynolds. And if you know, you know, it's a League of Legends book. It's no surprise if you've been around this stream or this YouTube channel, I absolutely love Arcane. It's a huge part of my personality, I guess, whether I like it or not, whatever. But through watching Arcane, I've been becoming more and more involved with League lore. I do not play the game. I do not have the bandwidth to get involved in something like the game. But the stories and the characters and the art are fascinating to me. I love big fantasy world building like that. It's one of the things I love in these sorts of fantasy books. And so when I found out Ruination was published, expanding on the larger Runeterra lore, I went out and got it. It has really pretty solid reviews online, and I gotta say, what I've read so far, I'm really enjoying it. It's a really fun romp. I would say reading this feels like I'm reading through a D&D campaign, and I mean that in the best way. There's like pirates and like bar fights and like big battles and political intrigue and different factions of knights. It's all the stuff you would hear and experience in a D&D campaign, and it's fun. I was also a bit hesitant at first to read something of like a fandom novel because I know those can be hit or miss. I've wanted to try the Warhammer 40k novels before. Wanted to jump into the League ones. I have read one of the Drizzt books, the Drizzt Do'Urden books, and while I liked it, I realized I didn't like it for the writing. I liked it for the world building. So like I'm not too keen on like jumping into that series whole hog again. It was good. It wasn't bad. Like I gave it 3 stars, but it was just meh. This book I am enjoying more than the Drizzt book so far. So if you've read those and that's anything to go by, I am enjoying this more so. Yeah, in the vaguest sense, an emergency pops up with the royal family of Camivore, and the king is desperate, and I mean desperate, to get it fixed. And so our main character, is sent off to a fabled land, kind of like an Atlantis situation, right? There's like a lot of texts written about it, but also everyone's like, it's not a real place. They're going off to find kind of like an Atlantis type of fabled land to find a fix, a cure, and oh boy, do shenanigans ensue. Lots of stuff happens. I'm having a really fun time with the characters. They're engaging and relatable. It's not as much of a deep dive as like Gideon the Ninth or Elder Race that I was talking about, but I'm still finding them really fun. And as I said, it's just like a fun romp. It's very action adventure. So right now at almost exactly halfway through, I'm leaning towards giving it 4 stars. That's how I'm feeling about it right now. And I think from brief research online, that's kind of the consensus that other people have too. Would recommend it. Fun. All right. And with that is everything I've read in the winter so far. So yeah, that was that. I really read a lot of bangers. There was one that was really not so good, but the rest, I feel like I've lucked out this season. So in another 3 months or so at the end of spring, I'll do another recap, talk about what I've read in the spring and get ready to jump off for summer reading. But before we go, because it is a new season, I'm actually recording this on the spring equinox today. I'm wanting to move forward with the seasonal book club idea. Over on Twitch, we'll do our book club selection bracket where I stream, and for like an hour or so, we kind of like do the tournament bracket of deciding which book we're gonna read. It's a super fun time. If you're interested, I highly recommend following me over on Twitch. Also, if you want more information on these sorts of announcements, I do have a community Discord that you can join. Everyone there is super nice, and I give schedule updates. You'll know exactly when the next book club selection is. It is June 19th. That is already on the schedule if you're interested. But in the meantime, our spring book has already been selected. And that book is another Adrian Tchaikovsky book. We will be reading City of Last Chances by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I'm very excited to read this. I have now read his sci-fi. I'm excited to jump into some fantasy of his. I've heard great things about this. I try to make sure everything that could be picked for book club is what I would call a banger. And I think this is going to be one. So feel free to participate. The next time I post a video like this, it will be around the end of June, preparing for summer. And I'll talk about all the books I read, including this one. If you do join the Discord, we will also have threads there where the book will be separated into chunks so that you can talk with me and other people in the community, mostly spoiler free. It'll give you chances to kind of jump in and not spoil the ending for you. Yeah, it'll just be a good time. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions about this sort of book club thing we're doing. I'm just kickstarting it, so I know some of it might be confusing and maybe I'm not explaining it super well. But we're gonna start and see where it goes. Also, please let me know what you have read this year and if there's anything you would recommend me read. If you have any thoughts on books I've read, maybe you really liked or really disliked something that I talked about. I just love having this sort of discussion with people, and I think it's a cool way to connect with others. Books are really magical, so I don't know. I can't wait to do this sort of thing more. We will be back to your regularly scheduled programming in 2 Fridays from now, where I'll get back to painting and probably doing more work on the house. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope you have a lovely day. Bye.